నేనే చెప్తాను కదా.
స్టార్ట్ చేయండి.
Good morning all. Good morning students. Welcome to intermediate first year webinars of Telangana State Model Schools. To take you into the wonderful world of botany, today we have with us a distinguished speaker, a passionate academician, an eminent social activist, Dr. A. Venugopal Reddy, working as principal TS Model School, Ganmukala, Vinavanka district, is with us. As you all know, he has dealt with some other sessions previously. Dr. A. Venugopal Reddy is always being an initiator, serving in the field of education. He received several awards and Best Principal Award from Telangana Government of Telangana and an asset to Telangana State Model Schools. During COVID-19, he wrote many articles, contributed support, spread awareness to the needy through giving live webinar sessions. I can describe him as a walking encyclopedia and always he has a passion for teaching too. So today I welcome Dr. Venugopal Reddy and he's going to deal with the first chapter of intermediate first year, plant biodiversity. Good morning, sir. It's my privilege to welcome you and I request you to start the session, please.
Thank you, Manjari madam. So earlier we discussed about the living world. This is about the chapter 1, unit 1, diversity in the living world. In the earlier classes, we discussed about some of the topics. We discussed about what is biology, what are living organisms. So we also discussed about the identification, nomenclature and classification basics. So we discussed about the differences between the living things and non-living things. Living things and non-living things, they differ in many aspects. We discussed about the aspects that they differ in each other. We defined what is living. We discussed about the various important properties that are associated with the living organisms. Important properties are growth, reproduction. We defined growth and how many types of growth will take place. We discussed about that. We discussed about the sexual and asexual reproduction. We discussed about the different modes of asexual reproduction. We also discussed about the various biochemical processes that are taking place in the living organism, which are commonly called as metabolism. We discussed about the anabolic and catabolic reactions, similarities and differences between them. Then we discussed about the ability of the organisms to sense their surroundings. That is called sensing environment. When they can sense, then only they can survive. We also discussed about the interactions between the organisms, interactions between the cells, interactions between the molecules. So interactions do takes place at every stage. So basing on that, we classified the organisms. So living organisms possess some important characters: growth, reproduction, metabolism, ability to sense environment, interactions. These are the most important properties of the living organisms. Then we had an intermission. After that, actually there was a class yesterday, but because of some technical reasons, we were unable to transmit that lesson. Now we'll go further deeper into the subject. So today we are going to discuss about the diversity in the living world. So far we understood what is meant by living. Any organism, yes, we call it as a living organism if it possesses the ability to grow, if it possesses the ability to reproduce, if it possesses the ability to self-replicate, if ability to perform metabolic reactions, if it performs ability to sense the environment, and it is able to interact with other living organisms, then only it is called as a living organism. So but this living organism is a living world is very vast, starting from microorganisms, say from archaebacteria. Archaebacteria are the most primitive organisms. Human beings are the most evolved organisms. Say from archaebacteria to the human beings, the diversity is very huge. So first of all, in the later classes, we will discuss about the 5 kingdom classification, 6 kingdom classification. When we discuss about the 5 kingdom and 6 kingdom classification, we will understand the vast diversity of the living worlds. But if you look at the living organisms, there microorganisms are there, plants are there, animals are there. We have to study them. We need 3 important parameters. we should be able to identify the organism. What is that organism? We have to identify that, and we should be able to give a name to that particular organism, and we have to put it into a particular class. So for example, you are all just now a few days back completed 10th class. Now you are going to coming to the intermediate college. When you are in 10th class, you are all 10th class students only. But when you come to the intermediate, some of you are in the BPC, some of you will be in the MPC, some of you joined in the CEC. On which basis you classified? On which basis we classified? But all of you will have some common subjects also. For example, Telugu and English, you are having common subjects, but at the same time you differ in some subjects. For example, BPC students, they will be having botany, zoology, physics and chemistry. MPC students, they will be having maths, physics, chemistry. That means at this level also they are having two common characters, physics and chemistry. So they are having four common characters: physics, chemistry, Telugu and English. But they differ in two subjects. One group will be having botany, zoology, another group will be having maths A and maths B. If you compare with the CEC, similarity is less. These three will have only two similarities: Telugu and English. In other subjects they differ. But we are having another group, MEC. This MEC is an amalgam of mathematics and CEC. So just we are having four groups in the intermediate. Within that four groups, several similarities are there, several differences are there. But in the world, we are having unlimited number of organisms. When we are having unlimited number of organisms, definitely there will be some similarities and there will be some dissimilarities will be there. So that we will discuss. So if you just go out and see around you, need not go to some Amazon forest, need not go to some Sahara desert, need not go to some Bay of Bengal. You just go out of your home, open the window or open the door, and if you can look at outside, you can see a wide variety of plants, insects, birds, pets, animals and plants. For example, in the evening, if you switch on the light and if you go near to the light, you will find at least 20 different types of insects. 20 different types of insects. You go to any outside area and if you keenly observe, you will find 50 different types of plants within 1 meter radius, within 2 meter radius. If you go to a garden, if you observe all the plants including the grass, you can identify at least 300 to 400 varieties of plants. So if you can observe this much variation within a small area, you just imagine how much variation will be on there on the earth surface. So you please understand only one thing: this earth contains a variety of organisms. A variety means, for example, if you go to marriage, if they put about 10 to 12 varieties of food material, we say they have given a lavish lunch back from a marriage. So we simply say that they arranged a lavish lunch just for 10 or 12 varieties. Whereas this earth surface is having millions of varieties of microorganisms, plants and animals. From that you can say how much lavish is the nature. And there are several organisms that we cannot see with our naked eye. We are able to see only microorganisms. We are able to see only plants and animals, but we are not able to see the microorganisms. I am speaking to you, in between my screen and myself there may be 1 billion microorganisms. Yesterday I was reading an article on COVID-19. One scientist was saying all the coronaviruses that are infecting the entire world population now can be put into a tablespoon. Now about in India itself, 1 crore people are affected with the coronavirus. All over the world, lot of number of people are affected with the coronavirus. But if you isolate all the coronaviruses that are at present in the human beings and put it in a tablespoon, they will settle in the tablespoon. A tablespoon of viruses are affecting the entire human population. So there are organisms which we can see. There are organisms which cannot be seen with the naked eye, but diversity is there. Lot of diversity is there. Another important feature is, so whatever I am saying about the limited area of the diversity. But if you go on searching the entire world, entire earth environment, you will find a lot of different varieties. So almost 1.7 to 1.8 million species of organisms are present. 1.7 to 1.8 million, that means 17 to 18 lakh million types of species are present. Very huge number. How many plant types you and me know? Hardly 100 or 120 or 150, 200 or 1000. But in this earth environment, 17 lakh to 18 lakh different types of species are present in the earth environment. We call all the plants and animals with our local name. So for example, if you call dog a dog, neem tree, వేప చెట్టు, mango tree, mango, మామిడి చెట్టు. Like this, we call different plants with different local names. Each language will have its own local name for each plant, microorganism, and animal. We call a plant వేప చెట్టు here. If you go to Karnataka, they will call it with some other name. If you go to Maharashtra, they will call with some other name. Then, if a scientific meeting is there, when all the people are talking about the same plant, then also they won't realize they are speaking about the same plant because they don't know the common name. So you must remember here, there is a lot of diversity in the earth environment. Different types of plants and animals are present. Very wide range of plants and animals. These wide range of plants and animals are almost 18 million, 1.8 million species. That means 18 lakh species are there. Each organism definitely will have a local name. Each organism will have several different local names at different places. As they are called with different names at different places, there may be a confusion in the scientific community. To overcome this, scientists developed a process called nomenclature. Nomenclature means naming. It is like an Aadhaar card for the plants, animals, microorganisms, everything. Nomenclature means every living organism possesses a common name across the world. It is called in Italy with the same name, in India with the same name, in America with the same name, in Pakistan with the same name, in Sri Lanka with the same name, in Tamil Nadu with the same name, in Telangana also with the same name. Wherever you go, Mangifera indica is Mangifera indica. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Salmonella typhi is Salmonella typhi. Wherever you go. This is for avoiding the confusion. Giving a common name to every living organism on this earth is called nomenclature. To give a name, we have to identify that organism first. That is called identification. So two things are there, identification and nomenclature. Whenever we come across a new organism, we have to identify what type of organism it is, whether it is a new organism or old organism. If it is a old organism, what is the nearest related organism? If it is a new organism, to which organism it is close? Basing on that, next we will go to the next step, that is called as nomenclature. Nomenclature means giving name to the organism. So this branch is called systematics. You cannot give name as you wish. You cannot identify as you wish. It has to be done in a systematic manner. As it is done in a systematic manner, that particular branch of science is called systematics. It is called taxonomy. Taxonomy includes identification, to identify what organism it is, determination, nomenclature, classification. Identification, determination, nomenclature, classification. These are all part of the taxonomy. What is nomenclature? Giving a scientific name to an identified organism. For example, if I went to some forest, suddenly I found a new organism. I took that new organism and I compared that organism with all the existing organisms I know, everybody knows. And I found that this organism not at all related to any other of these organisms. It is a new organism. I have to give a new name to this. Giving name to a new organism is called nomenclature. Organism is already there. Neither you nor me created it. That is already there, but we do not know about it. There is a difference between invention and discovery. Invention means creating something new. Rocket is invented. Discovery, already there, you are identifying it now. That is called discovery. So this organism already there, but we have never seen them. When we see them, when we come across a new organism, we immediately try to compare with other organisms. Compare with other organisms. When we compare, most of the times it is similar to one organism already there. But sometimes it will turn out to be a new organism. When it turns out to be a new organism, we have to give it a new name. Giving name to a newly discovered organism is called nomenclature. So what is identification? Identification is a process by which you will identify whether for example, I got this new organism. In identification, I will find out whether I know it already or it is a new organism. Whether I know it a new organism or a old organism. If it is a already known organism, no need to give the name. If it is a new organism, I have to give a new name to it. That is called nomenclature. So identification and nomenclature. Identification means to identify whether the organism I found is new or already known. Nomenclature means if it is new, I will give a name. Giving that name is called nomenclature. So how we will identify? There are several methods. Generally, for all the plants, we maintain herbarium, keys, etc. With the help of them, we will identify them. And names are based on principles of International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, ICBN. There is a fixed method is there. That fixed method is called ICBN, International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. By using that principles, we will give the name. So what is the need for giving a common name? The need is across the world. We know this as a bottle across the world. So it gives a common name. It gives clarity to the people. And no two organisms are known with the same name. A is known with A, B is known as B. So each organism will have only one name, not two names. So that is called nomenclature. For that, there are certain principles are there. Each name will have two parts. One is called generic name and another one is called specific epithet. Mangifera indica. Mangifera is generic name. Indica is epithet. Azadirachta indica. Azadirachta is generic name. Species is indica. Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Mycobacterium is generic name. Mycobacterium is generic name. Tuberculosis is epithet. Salmonella typhi. Salmonella is generic name. Typhi is epithet. So like this, every living organism will have two names. These two names will have one generic name and one epithet. So as I told, each name is having two components. That is why it is called binomial nomenclature. Binomial, it is containing two parts. Binomial means two parts. Nomenclature, a part, a name that is having two parts. That is why it is called binomial nomenclature. It was introduced by Carolus Linnaeus. Example, Mangifera indica, which I already discussed. There are four universal principles for naming the organisms. Four universal principles. What are four universal principles? They are written only in Latin. They are written only in Latin. And the name is written in italics. The name is written in italics. You cannot write here, you can see. Mangifera indica, it is written in italics. Mangifera represents a genus name. Indica represents species name. So Mangifera indica. So it contains two parts. As it contains two parts, it is called binomial nomenclature. The first word represents the genus name. Mangifera is the genus name. Indica represents species name. That is why it is binomial nomenclature. For example, if you are using printer, you convert them into italics. But when you write, you have to underline. Mangifera is underlined, indica is underlined. The fourth rule is that genus name starts with capital letter, species name starts with a small letter. So four rules are there. What are these four rules? One is it must be written in Latin in italics. Second one, the first name represents the genus. The second name represents the species name. Third one, whenever you are writing by using handwriting manually, Mangifera indica, genus name, species name must be underlined. The genus name should start with capital letter and the species name should start with small letter. These are the four rules. And you may add the name of the discoverer of that organism at the end. For example, Mangifera indica. Who has given the name? Linnaeus has given that name. That is why we are calling it as Mangifera indica Linn. Linn means Linnaeus. Like this, for every plant and microorganism and animal, after its genus name, specific name, you can add the discoverer name. For example, if I identify a new organism, I can call it as, I can give a genus name. After that, I will give a species name. After that, I will add my name. So four important principles are there. Must be written in Latin. It should be in italics. Two parts will be there. First part is genus. Second part is species name. If you write in it manually, you have to underline it. At the end, you have to give the scientist name. The genus name starts with the capital letter. The species name starts with the small letter. So these are some of the examples of nomenclature. Most of them are common plants. Chili is there, it is called Capsicum species. Lemon, citrus lemon. Garlic, Velulli, Allium sativum. Ginger, all over the world it is known as ginger in English. But in Telugu it is known as known as allam. I don't know with what name it will be called in Odisha, in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana, in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh. So to avoid that, for example, ginger, Gingiber officinale, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Zimbabwe, Maharashtra, America, UK, wherever you go, ginger is known as Gingiber officinale only. So the nomenclature helps the people, helps the scientist to identify without confusion. If you go to anywhere in the world, curcuma longa means turmeric. Allium sativum means garlic. Citrus lemon means lemon. Wherever you go, There won't be any confusion. Then classification. We identified a new organism. After that, we have given a name to it. Basing on identification itself, it has to be put in the classification. Classification means bifurcation of living organisms into different groups basing on their properties. For example, all animals are classified into two types, vertebrates and invertebrates. All plants are classified into different kingdoms. Protista, fungi, plantae, animalia, bacteria, like this, they are classified into different types of kingdoms. What are algae? Photosynthetic filamentous organisms. Fungi, saprophytic organisms. Bacteria, unicellular prokaryotic organisms. Plants, photosynthetic organisms. Animals, heterotrophic organisms. It is a classification. I'm not going deeper into the classification. Within each kingdom, there are subkingdoms of phyla, order, genera, species. But what is classification? Organizing organisms into different groups basing on their properties. For example, we are calling mammals. What are mammals? All the living organisms that will feed their offspring by milk is called mammal. Is called mammal. Simple. Any living organism that feeds its progeny through milk. Bats, they flies, but they are mammals. It is a flying mammal. Like this, we have a certain specific features basing on which we can classify the organisms. Initially, we classified them into plants and animals. Within the plants, a lot of classification is there. Bryophyta, pteridophyta, gymnosperms, angiosperms. Within the angiosperms, once again, classification is there. Animals classified into invertebrates and vertebrates. Invertebrates are once again classified into Protozoa, Porifera, Coelenterata, Platyhelminthes, Nematohelminthes, Annelida, Arthropoda, mollusks, Echinodermata. Chordates are classified into fishes, reptiles, avians, amphibians, mammals. This is all called classification. Classification is done on basing on the similarity of properties as well as dissimilarity of the properties. So we call them as taxons. We call them as taxons. A taxon represents categories at different levels. For example, plants is a taxon. It includes all plants. Wheat is also a taxon at species level or genus level. The taxon represents at different levels. So for classifying the organisms, we should have clear idea about their characters. We should have a total input about the external, internal, reproductive properties of these organisms. Then only we can classify the organisms. This taxonomy itself is a very huge branch. We are not going that deeper into that subject. You have to remember only 3 names and 4 principles. What are the 3 names, 3 things? Identification. Whenever a new organism is found, it has to be identified whether it is a new organism or old organism. After identification, we have to give a name, that is called nomenclature. For giving nomenclature, we are following binomial nomenclature that contains 2 parts. For giving a name, we have 4 sets of principles. It should be given in Latin. It should be written in italics. If it is handwritten, it should be underlined. The genus name starts with the capital letter. The species name starts with the small letter. At the end of the species name, we will have the discoverer name. That's it. And a classification. Basing on these properties of the living organisms, we have to classify them. That That branch of the science that deals with the classification of organisms is called systematics. Why it is called systematic? It is systematic arrangement of the living organisms. That is why it is called systematics. Linnaeus written a book called Systema Naturae to explain all these properties. So later it included identification, nomenclature, classification, etc. Classification also involves evolution also. Evolution is part and parcel. So that also includes the evolutionary relationship between the organisms. These are the different taxonomic categories: kingdom, phylum, division, class, order, family, genus, species. All the organisms of a species are 100% identical. All the organisms of a genus are 90% similar. All the organisms of a family are 80% similar. All the organisms of order are 60%. I am giving an approximate value. As we go up in the taxonomic order, the similarities decreases, differences increases. As you come down, the differences decreases, similarities increases. So for classification of these organisms, we use different types of taxonomical aids. Every year this is included in the syllabus, but this year it is not part of your syllabus. I am just giving, just touching it. Herbarium. What is herbarium? We collect different plants, dry them in the shade, press it, and paste it to a sheet. That is called herbarium. Botanical gardens. Mysore Botanical Garden is there. Calcutta Botanical Garden is there, where you will be having lot of plants. That is called botanical garden. Museum. Museum means specimens, dead material of the plants and animals are collected and put somewhere, which can be used for future research purposes. They are called a museum. Zoological Park. Nehru Zoological Park is there. If you go there, you can see many organisms which you cannot see in your surroundings. You cannot see a tiger here, but if you go there, you can see a tiger. You cannot see a lion here, but if you go there, you can see a lion. So such type of aids which can help us in classification of the organisms is called taxonomical aids. Then flora, monographs, manuals. Flora, monographs, manuals, these are also useful in identifying the organisms in a systematic manner. So what are taxonomical aids? Taxonomical aids means that helps in identification of the identification of the new organisms are called taxonomical aids. They just help us in identifying the new organisms. How we identify the new organisms? By comparing them with the existing organisms. By comparing them with the existing organisms. So this is not included in your syllabus for this year. So what we learned, we are coming to the end of the session. This is the final slide. In this lesson, we studied about the differences between the living and non-living organisms. Living organisms possess some characteristics which are distinctly different from the non-living material. We also studied about the characteristics of the living organisms: growth, reproduction, metabolism, ability to sense the surroundings, self-replication, self-organization, and interactions. We also studied about the diversity in the living world. This living world is very diverse. 1.7 to 1.8 million species of organisms are present. That much diversities. We also studied about the identification of the new organisms. How you identify the new organisms? By comparing with the existing organisms. After identification, what you will do? You will give a name. For giving name, we developed certain principles. Binomial nomenclature, International Code of Biological Nomenclature. And after nomenclature, you classify them. What are the different types of classification? How we classified them? What are the different groups of organisms exhibits different characters that we discuss in the upcoming lessons. So here you basically focus on the binomial nomenclature and nomenclature principles. That much is enough for this part. In the previous lesson, you must focus on the characteristics of the living organisms, that is growth, asexual and sexual reproduction, metabolism, that includes catabolism and anabolism, and you have to focus on the sensing of the environment. Thank you one and all. I thank Manjari Madam for arranging a special session for me because of technical problems. And I thank the additional director and joint director, all the webinar team members for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Madam. Manjari Madam.